Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're joined by Dr. Megan Powell, a former GB duathlete who now competes in Hyrox and has been putting down some seriously impressive times. Alongside her racing, Megan has a special interest in women's health, so we're really looking forward to chatting to her about her journey from elite endurance sport to Hyrox and diving into some important conversations around women's health and performance. So thank you for making the time for us on a Sunday, Megan.
Uh,
Welcome
thank,
to the podcast.
thank you for having me today. I am an avid listener, so I'm excited to have a chat today.
Oh yeah, it'll be really good. I think we've got quite a lot to cover and different angles, and we obviously want to find out about you and also speak about women's health and performance. So maybe we could start with a kind of background of you and sport and kind of where it started and how you ended up in the high rock space.
Yeah, sure. So my journey's been quite mixed. I come from a very sporting family where I just did a bit of everything when I was at school. When I went to university, I decided to take up rowing, which was completely new. And I did that up at Newcastle, which I didn't realize at the time was quite a high performance centre. And that's when I first kind of got into, I guess, kind of elite training. So we were training twice a day. We had kind of coach athlete support. So that was quite big. And then at the time I was doing a degree to get myself into medicine and I had to really focus on my degree and doing rowing was affecting my university time a little bit. I was falling asleep in lectures all the time. So I decided to take a step back and just did a little bit of netball for a year. And then I thought, you know what, I'd just like to do an individual sport. I got into medical school, which was going to be 5 years of kind of hard work. So I asked my mum for a road bike for my 21st birthday. My mum's very big into triathlon, which I can talk a little bit about later. So she bought me the bike, and then I joined the university triathlon club, and then spent a good 8 years in the triathlon sphere. And I particularly focused on duathlon. I don't know if you guys have heard of duathlon before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
it's
can
like
give a
yeah,
little
run.
rundown,
Talk
yeah, if you
about
want.
it. Yeah. So duathlon it basically means no swimming. I can swim. I'm a very average swimmer, but I realized I didn't enjoy it that much. But in duathlon, you do a run, a bike, and then another run. Typically, the first run is a longer run. You get it with nice, fresh legs. Whereas in a triathlon, your run's at the end when your legs are knackered. So it's not so much fun if you are a runner by background. And running is something that I've always been generally quite good at and kept ticking along. So when I was doing triathlon at uni, I kind of had a go at duathlon with the Bucks events and did quite well in it. So I thought, oh, I will try and improve upon that and go for a qualifier for the GB team. And I managed to get in for I think it was a world championship slot in my first race, which I was really happy with. So yeah, kind of from there, when I was at medical school, I was a kind of a sports scholar athlete once I got quite good at it and balanced medical school with competing kind of internationally, which was really fun. And then I kept that going for another couple of years. My first couple of years as a junior doctor, which was really, really hard work. I was very sleep deprived, but still tried to keep it going. And then I got to a point where I said, you know what, I've had enough of training every day, having a coach. I just want to live like a normal human being. And last final race in Australia, which was amazing. So went out there, did that race, came away with a bronze medal. So that was the World Championships a couple of years ago. Said goodbye to triathlon, spent 2 months doing nothing, and then decided to enter a Hyrox event. And so, and since then, the rest is history, really. I thought that I would be better at Hyrox than I was at my first event. I was humbled really quickly. I'd already thought, oh yeah, I'm going to podium. I'm going to, make sure I stay later on. And it was so hard. I was quite shocked, really. And so after that race, I got myself a coach. I started a training program again, and so yeah, I've kept going since there. And this is my second season now, so still quite new to Hyrox.
Well, that is
Wow.
wild. Yeah, like I mean, you must be so disciplined to like balance doing medical school and then becoming a junior doctor and like elite level training. It's like insane.
Oh, thanks. It's been hard work. I think there's something about a lot of medics. I don't know if you know many, but we like to keep ourselves busy. And I'm someone I love my job, but I also love having something else I'm looking forward to outside of work. So if I can have goals in both, my professional and my sporting life, then that makes me kind of feel a bit more whole in a way. And it's also a really good time to unwind. And I do a lot of my best thinking, especially when I used to do endurance training, on a 3 hour bike ride, you come up with some great ideas or you really process what's happened at work. And I think that's why I kept it going, especially as a new junior doctor when you're doing up to 70-hour weeks. Just having the time to go away, go on a long run, a long bike was really therapeutic as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, was there any other junior doctors doing the same thing, or was it just you balancing it all?
Where I worked at the time, so I was working in London, which seems to be less sporting in a way. So I was kind of one of the only people doing what I was doing. So a lot of my colleagues thought I was a bit strange. But since moving to Bristol, where I am now, and everyone's a bit more outdoorsy here, so actually it's not quite so unusual, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. How about can we go back to the rowing? Because obviously
Yeah.
rowing is a huge part and the ergs are a huge part of Hyrox. And you said you've obviously, yeah, I know like Newcastle is like a huge like a really good sporting university. So you obviously did get some crazy coaching and things like that. Like what did you do? Like what were your sessions like? Were they just like falling off the rower and
Yeah. Yeah,
like did you do a lot of
literally.
erg work as well as being in that boat that you probably I don't even know how
Yeah.
you balance in
So
those boats.
it's hard to think back. It's been quite some time, but we definitely would have, I would say 2 or 3 erg sessions a week, as well as going out on the water. And depending on the time of year as well, obviously in the winter it's pretty chilly up in Newcastle, but we would still go out if we could. But some of the sessions, I still don't quite know how I did that. The endurance, we had this one particular one, it was like 10, 1500s on the erg, which is a lot of volume and we were encouraged obviously to have kind of target splits as well, but they were, what was a bit of a joke is there were kind of sick buckets by every erg, and I'd say the boys were probably worse for it than the girls, but you would do your session and people would be pushing to that sort of point of exhaustion, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, there's got to be a switch in people to be able to do that. A lot of people could never get there, I don't think. Like, there's only a
Yeah.
certain person that could push past to I
Yeah.
think, like, get to that limit of throwing up.
Yeah,
Did you get there?
oh no, no, I'm someone who I'm a bit of a vomit phobe, so actually that would
Yeah,
be. But I think when we do our rowing sessions, you do it in your team squad, and you'd all be going. You might have seen videos on social media, but you all kind of row at the same time in the same tempo. So your session would be like rate 24, and you'd want to keep time with each other in order to kind of simulate being in the boat. So I think having other people around you obviously makes you push yourself a bit more. And then if you're thinking about selection for crews and things like that, then obviously you would push a bit harder, I guess.
yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it's a brutal training, isn't it? Like, seen some stuff from rowers, and yeah,
Yeah,
it just
it
looks like the
was.
sessions just look brutal.
Yeah, it was quite something. I think what I liked about it is you don't just row. So obviously you've
Mm.
got the ergs, you're on the water, but we used to do runs, we used to do, running sprints before we got on the water. We do a lot of lifting. So again, my kind of strength training started through kind of having, we lift probably 4 times a week. So it's quite a mixture of activities that you do. But I would say when I got back on the rower again for Hyrox training, there was a little bit of kind of PTSD flashbacks. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not surprised. Oh man, brutal. But I mean, I'm pretty sure if like, yeah, Jane from Ergami's watching, you probably got the best technique out of anyone jumping on that rower now.
I'd say it's pretty good. I think we used to do a lot of analysis as well, so I think it's all right. I does when I go to the gym and see other people on the rowing machine, I do cringe a little bit inside. I want to chuck their damper down, tell them they don't need to, move the handle over their knees, etc. So that does hurt a little bit, but it's nice having that skill tucked away.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then can we talk a little bit more about the duathlon and that endure? I mean, you must have an incredible like aerobic base and endurance base. What sort of distances were you racing at when you like split it up for the run bike run?
Yeah, so I did a mixture of sprint and standard distance duathlon, but sprint seemed to be my better distance. A sprint would be a 5 kilometer run, a 20k bike, and then a 2.5k final run to finish. So it takes about an hour or so in total. And then a standard is double that. So I'd say aerobic base was generally quite good, but nothing crazy like kind of Ironman athletes sort of, and that's never interested me either. So my training in the week, especially with work, something I've always prioritized is quality sessions over lots of kind of junk volume, if that makes sense. And I think doing sprint duathlon really lean towards that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That makes sense. So power is probably quite big for because 20k bike's quite short, really, like I guess. So did you
Yeah.
have a lot of focus on like kind of power and explosive strength?
Yes, yeah. So a lot of my bike sessions were horrible kind of threshold VO2 max intervals, and we did quite a lot of around kind of FTP range. So my FTP was pretty good at the time. I'd like to think it's not dropped off too much, but a lot of my training was around that with kind of one long, easier ride a week, and the same for running as well. So, yeah.
Will
Uh,
you share what your FTP is,
I
or?
knew Faye was gonna
Oh,
ask
I
that.
can't. I can't. No, I'm sorry. I need to know. Or you can tell me later if you don't want to say
No,
on
no,
this.
I can say. So I think at my peak we got to 260 watts, which
Oh,
for
fair.
me is about 4 watts per kilo.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is impressive.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
fair
don't
play.
no, I wouldn't quite be there now, but I still really enjoy cycling. So it's something I keep in, which is nice. And it keeps you quite injury free typically. That was the good thing. When I did duathlon, I was very rarely injured because a lot of my I didn't the run bike split means that your run volume's not crazy high, and obviously bike is quite low risk in terms of injury. So that was quite nice as well.
So have you kind of carried that on throughout your Hyrox training, like using the bike quite a lot to help with the run volume or to help lower the run
Yeah.
volume?
Yeah, I've tried to. I'd still say I'm still trying to work out what works well for me with high rocks. I think what I learned through racing was that actually my running was very good, but the run to stations, the going up in, you could be sitting your heart rate nice and steady, and then you go and push the sled and your heart rate spikes and then coming back down again. And that really affected me performance wise. Whereas I was used to racing where you'd sit at a very consistent heart rate for most of the race. And so actually a lot of what I was realized I needed to focus on was actually more of those kind of going between run and stations and a more kind of higher intensity sort of hit training work, I guess, in a way. I've done a bit to my current coach where we kind of add in bike intervals with stations as well as running. So obviously not running all the time to avoid injury. So that has crossed over as well. So yeah.
God, it's so interesting, isn't it? I love like different people's backgrounds, but also what you pull into Hyrox. And then you did say you were like humbled by Hyrox
Yeah.
a little bit with your first race. What did you? I know, like you go into it and you don't really know what to expect, do you? Because it just and with your like level of fitness and being elite, like world championship medalist, um, yeah, and such a good runner. Was it the fact you had like compromised legs going into the running, or what was it that like humbled you, I guess, from the first
Yeah.
race you did?
Good question. I think a lot of it was probably pacing in
Hmm.
reflection. So I did my first race was just the Women's Open in Paris, and I think I definitely went off too fast. I then on the ski decided to pull a ski PB over 1 kilometer. And then after that, the rest of your race, you're like, oh God, this really hurts. And then the sleds, oh my God, my sled push was fine, but my sled pull took me 6.5 minutes in my first race. And again, it was all technique though. I hadn't really spent enough time with sleds and I was kind of figuring out my training myself for the first race. And it was terrible. And after that, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I went on to the burpees. And the burpees, it was one of those courses where it was just one long 80-meter stretch. And I remember getting halfway down and lying on the floor, like, I do not want to get back up again. You know that feeling? And I
Yeah.
came off the station and I went to the water station. I was honestly seeing stars. And I think it was just pushing my heart rate up so high that my body just didn't know what to do with itself and just needed some time to come back down again. So yeah, I'm not still not 100% sure why. Well, I think it was all pacing really, and just not being used to jumping between stations as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean that'll do it, won't it? Like
Yeah,
a ski PB and a
yeah,
fast
yeah,
first half, and I think everyone's been there where you just fall off a cliff a little bit, and you start to learn that maybe you might need to pace the race.
yes. And then
But
yeah. And you get on the rower, which for me is like, oh, I'm looking forward to the rower, but it's after the burpees and your legs are gone and you're like, really? So you have to, make it a bit more of a recovery station, which is not ideal when it's one of your favorite and you're like, oh, for God's sake. But yes, so yeah, it was funny.
And then you've since teamed up with Charlotte and you've been doing some doubles. We have had Charlotte on the podcast if anyone's not sure. So you can go back and have a listen to her. Did you girls know each other already? And how did that partnership come about?
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to talk about this. Yeah, so my first year of Hyrox, I just did solos, mainly because I didn't really have anyone else to do it with. And then I did some mixed doubles with a friend. And then after actually no, before World Championships, so Charlotte lives in Bristol as well, which is where I live. And both of us used to run or crossed over with the same running club, which is Bristol and West. And Charlotte's an incredibly good runner, much better than me by background, just in terms of her middle distance experience. And we had talked a little bit before World Champs that there was something called the Midland Road Relays, which is a big kind of road running club event. And we had a little chat with each other and we're talking about Hyrox. And our coach, who's a very old school running coach, was like, what is this Hyrox malarkey? Anyway, so after that, we caught up at Worlds and her partner was going to stop doing Hyrox. And so Charlotte messaged me a couple of weeks later, like, would you like to do some doubles next season? I think it'd be really fun. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, Charlotte wants to do doubles with me because she's such a high caliber of athlete that I've always kind of looked up to. And I was like, oh, she wants me to do that. So we live very close to each other. So that's quite nice as well. So we can train together, kind of try to do a session once a week or every couple of weeks. And then, yeah, we've done some racing over this season. We've qualified for Worlds. I've actually been plagued by a bit of an injury the last few months, so our races haven't been the best they could be, which is very exciting that there's more in the tank to come. But we're kind of getting there in terms of progress with that as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, we saw you guys at Manchester, didn't we?
Yeah.
And you just raced, but I think the potential that you two have got is like crazy. What's the injury, if you don't mind me asking? Are you managing it okay? Is it a
Yeah, yeah.
long-term
So
thing?
I've got quad tendonitis in both
Oh
of my
no.
knees, but which is a bit annoying, mostly the right. I think it's come about because again, coming from running and cycling purely with not much explosive movements, high volume squats, lunges, etc. I've just overdone it and my quads have been very unhappy. And I've pushed it. I've never had a tendon injury before, so I didn't quite realize the sort of rehab process that you need and felt like I could come back to racing a bit sooner than I could. So actually the last two races I've done, I've been carrying an injury but felt I was okay. And then it's flared up again afterwards. So I've recently pulled out of a couple of events, but again looking towards worlds. But we are progressing now, which is good.
No, that's sensible. Like I think you've got the spot at Worlds and you've got that as probably a focus. So giving it the time I guess to recover, although be it frustrating when you've got races booked, I think that's the hard thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what I really struggle with, and especially with doubles. If it's solo, you'd be like, okay, I'll just pull out. But when it's doubles, you don't really like letting someone down. And so what Charlotte and I have done in the last couple of races, when we knew I wasn't going to be completely fit, is we focused on other things. For us, it's the stations. We know that we are both really good runners. We can very comfortably hold a 3:45 pace, but doing that with the stations is what we're really working on. So that's what we've done the last couple of races. I think when we saw you guys in Manchester, we got managed to get our PB there, which is also crazy because I've basically done about 4 months of no running before that event as well.
So
All
crazy.
other things went well, so that was good. So it can only get better. And obviously our eyes are on a sub-hour is what we definitely think we're capable of. So watch this space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd definitely say you girls have got a sub hour in you. If you can run a 3:45, and we know how fast you girls are, then when it all comes together, I just can't see how you haven't got that in the bag. But I think I also think that's really important what you just said, and I've had a similar journey probably this like probably last 6 to 8 months, either through illness or through injury, and we've focused on some races when they haven't gone well, or we've gone into them a bit compromised. Is just focusing on something else, like not focusing on the time, not focusing on pushing it, but focusing on, I don't know, if you go into sled pull, just trying to be a bit faster with the transitions, or like just looking at different things to get a win out of that race that and use it as a training, like a training session. Just yeah, a really good realistic training session, but you're not actually fussed. Well, I know you're always fussed about the time at the end. I'd be wrong to say you don't look at the time, but it's like having another focus in the race and another win, which, sometimes we just pick a station that's like our worst station. Like the lunges we did, like didn't do too well in. We used to be pretty slow, and we've just started to focus on those and just made that faster. So whether the race time at the end is slower, faster, whatever, your win is that you managed to improve that station, which was your focus going in. So I think that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, yeah, definitely. It's been nice to have that focus and not worry about the time, and then the time kind of comes with it. For us in Manchester, it was burpees. We still don't really know what happens on burpees, but we seem to be significantly slower. It's like we're having a cup of tea or something whilst doing them. So we were like, right, no, we really need to get under a sub 3 minute burpee. So that was actually our main focus of the race, and it was quite nice. And especially the burpees were really near the in and out. So it was like, okay, in, come out again. And both of us knowing, looking at our watch, we're like, oh, we've done that. And we then sped up for the rest of the race, which was quite nice.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been nice to change things a little bit, I guess.
Do you think that's like mental game? Like if we touch on the mental game, which we always like to do you think
Mm.
mentally you girls like smash the burpees, it gave you that buzz to like push harder, or what do you think helped?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also at that time we were quite close to a couple of other girls who we know are very good and have beaten us quite significantly before. And I think we made that time on the burpees we wanted to. And then when it's like when you're running near other people, you're like, oh, we're together now. So we kept with them on the runs, and that just gives you a bit more drive when you've got that competition nearby as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's why it's nice when like there's some good waves, and I think they are starting to try and focus on like which athletes are in which wave and trying to get the top ones racing against each other, because I think it definitely helps in a race to have that pushing you on, like for sure.
Yeah,
And now with the new race, like with the new format, it is about position, isn't it? So they almost
definitely.
need to have the fact, like you almost need to race now rather than go for your time, because
Yeah, you
yeah.
definitely have to. And also, it's difficult because every race is different, and you could argue it's a time trial, but if you're a few waves down, the course could be busier as well. The equipment could be different. So it is really important, I think, to have those people racing together. And Charlotte will always say she comes from a track background where she is very good at sticking with people, like very, very good at that. So she kind of goes off like a rabbit at the start, and I'm like, oh, wait for me. And then in my duathlon background, we used to do what we call draft legal racing, which is where you're allowed to draft off each other on the bike. So it's really important to keep together on the run so that you are with them on the bike, because you get that benefit from the draft as well. So we're both of us are very used to kind of holding on to competitors rather than a solo time trial as such. So it'd be nice to keep that going with the Hyrox racing as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy, isn't it? Like the background you have in sport, like it doesn't always have to be the fitness, does it? It's even just little things like that, like tactics or just being used to running in crowds or getting around people. And I think that's so interesting.
Yeah.
What does the new qualification system and things look like for you girls? It hasn't affected either of you, has it? You both British passports,
Yeah,
like as
so
in going
yeah,
forward.
yeah, we're both British passports. We're obviously eyeing up thinking about that. It's not quite been the season we hoped for so far. But I think the next race we're hoping to do is Paris, end of April. And if we get a good time in that, I think we'll apply for our kind of athlete license
Hmm.
thing that they want you to do. But it should all stay okay. I think the one negative with it is that it's still going to benefit people racing in slightly more obscure locations. Like the UK races are so stacked. You just look at the top, the top 10 girls who are all kind of under 102, 101, which is crazy. Whereas you could go abroad and, podium with a 105 plus. So that's always going to be interesting to think about as well.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it is true. I do think, I mean, I know they've said something about
Percentile, like within, you have to
depth
be
of
within a
field
time, don't you?
and
Yeah.
things, but I think it's only, yeah, when it starts to become like a draw and things. So I do
Hmm.
think it's not quite like sussed just yet, but maybe an improvement with the different courses and things like that. Not
It's it's
everyone.
it's 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 wild though. Like this morning, we were looking at we're gonna have the London, um, like the regionals for Europe and Africa and like the Middle East coming up, aren't we, in London? And
Hmm.
you look at the top girls in that, and it's just like it is, and it's like an elite 15 race. Whereas you like look at America and the APAC region, there's a lot of new names and new girls
Yeah.
that you don't know. Whereas it's actually even to just get into that top 15 in Europe to race in that is like getting into an elite 15 race anyway. The talent in the field in Europe is so much
Insane.
higher.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. I was actually talking to Charlotte about this the other day because they had the Americas regional recently. And I think, the top 15 girls, I think the lowest with a qualifying time again of maybe 104, 105. Whereas
Yeah.
in the UK, you've got to be well under an hour to get anywhere, sniffing at the top 15. So I think although it obviously means the competition is big in the UK, I think it's nice if you place well in a UK race, you're like,
Yeah.
well, you know what, this is equivalent almost to worlds in a way, and which
Mm.
is good preparation, but also it is nice to maybe go somewhere where you don't quite have that depth of field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still a balancing act, isn't it? It's still, you probably still have to be quite tactical. I think, like you said, like racing a UK race, you can pretty much say you're racing against the best racers in the world. Whereas if you go and race somewhere else, sometimes though, I think now people are just turning up at different races. Now they're like depth of field at some races. There always seems to be like an elite
Yeah.
pairing or something because people are obviously going to get the course. But yeah, it's still, I mean, it's still growing, isn't it? It's a growing sport. I suppose there's always going to be these teething
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing how things change and evolve, and how things seem to change mid-season as well. I think it fascinates me a little bit too. It's always kind of pushing the boundaries a bit, but it keeps you on your toes. And I think that's what I quite like about doing Hyrox now. Not only is it about, there's lots of different elements to think about, but the race strategies, the qualification is all changing as well, which makes it quite interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You just have to get a
I,
holiday, don't you? As well as
Yeah,
racing them all.
yeah.
That's the way to do it. I think they've
It
got
is, and
Tenerife on next year. Like
I
yeah.
know.
Oh yes, do you know what? I saw that. I was saying to Charlotte, I was like, oh, should we go on holiday?
everyone will be there in
Um,
their all-inclusive
Yeah.
hotels.
Yeah.
it's good. I love going away to races. Again, when I did duathlon, most of my racing was in Europe, and I went to various parts of Spain where the weather is typically much nicer than it is here, and it's nice to, sample local cuisine and sightsee a bit, isn't it, around a race weekend?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then can we kind of go down the women's health performance route a little bit, and maybe you could just kind of talk to us about your interest in that and anything that you've maybe looked into or are researching at the moment, and give a bit of advice if you have for any of our female listeners around training, whether it's training for Hyrox or any other like high level sport. I'm kind of just going to open it up to you.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, I should probably say as a background, I'm currently a GP registrar. So I'm in my final year of GP training. Been a qualified doctor for 5 years, and I should be a qualified GP hopefully in the summer. And through kind of this whole period of time and at medical school, being a sporty person, I've always been interested in kind of sports medicine. And then again, over the last few years, and particularly women's health has kind of snuck into that as well. At one point, I thought I might want to do ops and gynae as a career, but realised that the surgical side of things was not what I wanted to do. So actually, how could I incorporate that into GP? And so now I've done quite a few extra qualifications in both menopause and also contraception care. I'm doing a bit more work around fertility and trying to conceive. And what I'm trying to do is think about that in the context of the female athlete as well.
Mm.
And I think it's really important. And one thing I'm really passionate about talking to other healthcare professionals about this within the NHS, because actually the majority of athletes So kind of non-elite Olympic level athletes will be relying on their NHS GP or NHS consultants for their care. And so actually my argument is that all doctors should have an understanding of kind of general principles around kind of sporting considerations, and especially in the context of kind of female athlete health and thinking about hormones and contraception and pregnancy, postnatal menopause. It definitely creates a slightly different slant on things. And when I speak to most doctors, they're not confident. They don't have a clue unless they're probably interested in sports themselves.
Yeah.
I'd say most of the work I'm doing at the moment, whilst I'm developing my own, I guess, knowledge, experience, and networking, a lot of what I do is actually teaching other healthcare professionals about female athlete considerations. So for me, I know you've had a few amazing people to come talk about it before, but REDS, so relative energy deficiency in sport, is something I'm super passionate about talking about because it's something that definitely presents in GP quite commonly and probably wouldn't get picked up, and most doctors definitely have never heard of it before. Thinking about contraception, having done more qualifications in contraception, I'm starting to think a bit more about how we can shape the consultation around contraception for athletes. What would you recommend? What would you not recommend? And so I think that's a big kind of research area for me at the moment and what I'm wanting to focus on. But there's lots of different things out there. And I think my main two aims at the moment are just developing a bit more knowledge and awareness about contraception in athletes, but also just for other healthcare professionals to ask patients about their sporting background, because I think that will unlock a lot of things you probably didn't know.
Yeah. No, that totally
It's
makes
crazy,
sense.
isn't it? Because sometimes you go to say like a GP, and I don't know if anyone's listening that's from a different country, like Australia, America. We've got a few listeners that aren't UK based. It's like general practice. I don't know what a GP would be in those countries. Same thing.
Primary care physician or family doctor. Yeah.
Okay, but you have to know like a little bit about a lot of things because anyone can come in with like anything, can't they? And you kind of like the first port of call to before people can go to a specialist. But usually, I think when you go to like a GP, and if you are athletic and healthy and like you weigh a normal weight, and they're like it's almost like oh you're kind of fit, and like I don't know whether they would think about Reds. I can understand what you mean about if you weren't into sport and you didn't know about it, why would they ever think that you've got an energy deficiency when you're like this fit, healthy, average weight girl that's come into the GP, but yeah, you're presenting with symptoms that are like exhaustion
Yeah.
or yeah, it's like quite a. Would they just tell you to chill out? What's the normal response from the GPs that you're talking to when you explain it to them? What would they prescribe? Just people to take a break and take some pressure off? I don't know.
I would say, number one, a lot of patients won't actually easily disclose that they do a lot of sport. So they
Okay.
might come in and say, I'm really tired, or I'm having irregular periods, or I'm not sleeping very well. And actually, number one is, are you asking them about their sports? Not everyone's quite so open in saying, I do this, this is what I'm worried about. A lot of people might not think about that. And especially teenagers is a big problem I'm seeing at the moment. You're at a time of high energy growth. You get these very sporty teenagers doing, running outside of school, but also PE, and they're not fueling enough, and they come into me with headaches and fatigue, thinking, there's a significant medical problem. And obviously, we always exclude other medical conditions before we think about REDS. But actually, most doctors wouldn't think to go down that pathway. They just say, oh, we can't find a medical cause. Maybe think about balancing your life a bit better, but none of that specific advice,
Mm.
which is where I think if you happen to end up as one of the patients on my list, you're kind of lucky in a way. But the way our healthcare system works, you don't know what GPs have interests in what. So it's difficult. And obviously you sign up to a practice in your local area. You don't just say, oh, I want to see that doctor without, paying privately necessarily.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I guess
Everyone
it
in
can.
no,
Sorry.
sorry. I was going to say everyone in Bristol will be signing up to yours now. Sorry, I'm
Um,
gone.
no, I was gonna say that I guess it's maybe quite difficult with contraception thrown in because a lot of different methods, whether it's like the pill or the implant or the coil, can like stop females having a period, and then that's one of the main signs, am I right, of REDS? So then if you actually don't have one because of the contraception, how do you spot that you're not having one because of reds? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. It creates a conundrum, and that is something which, again, if I was starting contraception for a patient, I would say, "Oh, can you tell me a bit more about your sporting background? Just to be aware, any bleeding you get with this is not a true period. So actually, if we're wanting to monitor your kind of underlying hormonal health, we need to think about other factors. So you can think about other things. So are they getting infections really frequently? Any bone stress injuries, feeling particularly fatigued, poor motivation for training, poor performance. So those are all general indicators of low energy availability, which ultimately is the foundation of REDS. And because REDS is a there's lots of different problems that your body can have with it. We do focus on periods, but actually you can think about all those other problems as well. So you can monitor those as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we did chat to someone on the podcast a little while ago, Rachel O'Connor, and she was like really open about how she didn't realize, I think, the effect of like the stress and the exercise then on fertility when she then stopped and was trying to have a baby. And like I guess it kind of opened up, we got a few comments from it because it's such an important topic to talk about, especially for younger athletes, because it's not until you then get older and decide that you do maybe want to try and have a family that you realize that there's these like effects. Is there any way that a female can kind of like, I don't know, is there, minus having a regular period, is there ways that you can know that you're like quite healthy in your training and your lifestyle, that hopefully nothing is getting affected for later on in life?
It's really difficult. And I think that again, it's just thinking about how are you feeling in the context of your training. So is your motivation still there? Are you particularly fatigued? Are you run down? Ultimately, there are lots of, as well as REDS, there are lots of other conditions that can affect your fertility or affect your cycles. And lots of women were started on the pill when they were teenagers and don't know what their normal menstrual cycle is like, stop the pill, and actually it turns out they have PCOS, they have very irregular periods and didn't know about it. But it's always, there's pros and cons, but I think the most important thing is to have a informed discussion about those risks when we start contraception. And I have to say I'm very pro contraception. It's something that I've personally taken for years and years and years. So this is something I get quite passionate about because it does have benefits in terms of, you can manipulate your period so you're not on it whilst you're racing. It can obviously help with PMS symptoms. It can help with conditions such as endometriosis, PCOS too. But I think if you're looking to wanting to conceive, you probably do need to think about stopping that a few years ahead of that sort of period, just so that you can get a bit of a check-in as to where you're at. If you're taking a progesterone only form of contraception, so basically anything that's not the combined pill, you can still get your hormones checked. So for some women, they can still be accurate. But if you're on the combined pill, if you get your hormones checked in bloods, it won't be accurate, basically.
Okay. Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And then do you have any advice for like mums of young girls? Like maybe we've got the Hyrox All Stars now, and like there's a lot of I feel like it's a great movement at the moment where it's like strong, not skinny, and girls are getting back into sport again. And it's not one of those, we're trying to stop girls giving up sport when they leave school. Or do you have any advice about like having an active young daughter for the mums out there?
Yeah, so I think children obviously role model off their parents, and I'm a prime example. Both my parents are very active. Our household was always full of someone doing sports activities, muddy trainers, sports kit, and my mum is a very good triathlete in her own right. And I think watching her perform, it always inspired me to perform, and that was normal for you. And I think, I watch videos of Lauren Weeks with her little one, and they're the most adorable videos in the world. And she's obviously, really, she's copying, she's watching, she's seeing what mum's doing. And I think that's the biggest way that you can encourage young people into sport. And I think it's more challenging if your family isn't a sporting family for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then is there, you spoke about kind of post postpartum, like menopause and that kind of route. Is there anything that can help any women listening if they're kind of struggling with symptoms or struggling to get back into fitness, having a baby or anything along those lines?
I think it's really difficult. I'd say that end of the spectrum of life is an area I have a bit less experience in because I think I can't link in personally yet. But I think if we were thinking about perimenopause and menopause, I would really encourage women to go and speak to their GPs about HRT if that is something that they are, is medically appropriate for them. I think women see a huge benefit in their symptoms. HRT is very safe. It contains less hormones than contraception does, just as a start. And actually, the benefit that I see in starting it for women is huge. And specifically for mood-related symptoms. So a lot of women get to 40 or 50 and they might find they suddenly get anxiety for the first time or their mood's really low. And they go to see their GP and GP starts them on antidepressants, where actually it's hormonal fluctuation changes. They start on HRT, they feel much better. You feel better, you want to exercise more, you want to perform, performance is better. So I think it's really important to have that conversation with a doctor. I would always recommend women, so most practices should have a doctor who's their lead in women's health or has a special interest in women's health. So I would always recommend saying, or hanging on to see if you can get an appointment with that doctor. All doctors can prescribe HRT, but in all honesty, most male doctors, it's not their expertise. They will give you bog standard HRT. Whereas if you wanted a bit more niche advice, then I would recommend just asking who the person is who's best for it, your practice.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've got a really off the wall question. It's not
Yeah.
really about women's health. It's more about being a doctor and women's health, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think about GPT? Like as a doctor, like and a physician, like and everyone just like, oh, what's wrong with me? I'll just ask chat. Like that's the new thing, isn't it? What as a doctor, what do you think about the chat GPT era?
Um, ChatGPT is very good. I think the problem with it is it doesn't think about nuances. It doesn't think about the broader context. So in medicine, there are some very straightforward, yes, it's likely to be this, yes, it's likely to be that. This is the algorithm we fall in. But there's always going to be patterns outside of the box. A particular bugbear for me is people who put their blood test results into ChatGPT because I think that creates a lot of concern. Whereas we know, for example, if something like your platelets is, 2 below normal, that means nothing in a clinical context. But ChatGPT will say, well, it could be this, 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 or this. Whereas me as your clinician saying, you're well, it's only 2 below normal. If you sent your sample to a lab each day of the week, it's probably going to vary by 5 to 10 each time. And it doesn't quite have that understanding of it. But it can be useful. And I mean, I hear now medical students use it to help them revise with. So it's obviously good enough for that. But
Wild, isn't it?
but I think hopefully human doctors will still always have a role because you still have to understand the whole wider context and also have that, I guess, rapport and that, human aspect to understanding people. Looking someone in the eye and seeing they say they're okay, but actually you feel like there's something not quite right, or a child who comes in who looks unwell, you can't mimic that through ChatGPT either.
Yeah, no, like totally. I agree. I just feel like now it's like, you used to have Google in your pocket when that first came out, and everyone would be like, oh, Googling like what's this rash, and then think they're dying. And now I'm like, as a doctor, it must be so frustrating when people come in, they're like, probably like, oh, I've Googled this, or I've gone on ChatGPT and I think I'm dying. Can you just confirm? You're probably like,
It's a little bit annoying, but I also say to people, lots of people do this. Tell me what your thoughts are, and then we can work our way through that. And I think that's a good way of dealing with it. And I do think it creates a lot of health anxiety. Health anxiety is huge. But then people who have health anxiety tend to try and steer away from things like ChatGPT as well. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Well, it's a funny one, isn't it? You did touch on blood tests then, though. Do you recommend? I know there's a lot of elite athletes that whether they're linked with someone that does blood tests or whether they believe in it themselves and they, every 3 months they're getting blood tests to see where they are for their performance. Is there anything you would suggest that the average athlete could do, or female just for female health could take a
Yeah.
blood test for?
I
Or
think,
do
yeah,
you
no,
not
no.
think that? I don't want to
I
put
know.
words in your mouth.
I recently have done a private blood test, mainly because I couldn't think of a good enough reason to tell my GP to do it for me. But I think the most important biomarkers, in my opinion, especially for female athletes, would be hemoglobin and ferritin, so your iron. I think that iron deficiency, whether it's anemic or non-anemic, is rife. I mean, in menstruating women anyway, let alone adding in sport as well. And your GP is unlikely going to check it unless you have symptoms. So I personally think that's really important to check. And I personally found out that I had really quite significant iron deficiency a few years ago and had no idea. And I'm always tired, but I'm like, well, I'm a very busy person, so I expect that. But actually realizing that made me kind of supplement. And I have a completely like I have red meat 2, 3 times a week, very, very light periods. My only risk factor was the fact that I was an athlete. And so to have such a low iron, I mean, my GP didn't really understand it. It was me who had to go away and do some reading and say, oh, actually, I think this is related to my sport, and then added in a supplement which has helped. So I think that's the most important thing you could track. You could do a baseline hormone check if you're not on contraception, but I wouldn't do that regularly unless there are concerns. Um, it's so tempting. Even when I had the website myself, I was like, oh, I could check that, I could check that. But actually, do I need to check that? No. It's probably not worth doing. But yeah, hemoglobin and iron would be the two things that I would recommend checking.
And then is there a level for iron? There's like I'm gonna say this wrong or do it wrong, but like there's a number that your iron should be, but if you're a female athlete, you would want it to be higher. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So interesting. I was actually researching this over the weekend because I'm about to do a talk to some medical students about it. But there is no exact cutoff that we're 100% sure on yet. The paper seemed to suggest above 30, and this is looking at ferritin. So ferritin is a kind of a surrogate marker of iron stores sort of in your body. So 30 is, they suggest above 30 is good. In athletes, probably looking more towards 50 to 100 is better. But we also, when we're looking at iron, this is why I say to check hemoglobin. So iron is bound to hemoglobin around your body to give oxygen to the body, and your hemoglobin will go up as your iron goes up, and it will go, so your hemoglobin may go up and your iron will go down because it's increasing the amount of hemoglobin, and that can fluctuate. So if your hemoglobin, so for a woman it should be above 120, otherwise you're anemic. If your hemoglobin was 123 but your iron was 7, which is very low, you started supplementing, your hemoglobin might go up to 140, which is great, but your iron may still stay around kind of 10 to 12. And that's just because your body has utilized the iron to increase your hemoglobin. So you have to look at the two together to make a clinical judgment, if that sort of makes sense.
And then do you keep going on that journey until your iron is up to like 30, 50,
Yeah,
100?
ideally.
Yeah.
Ideally. The problem with that most people encounter is iron supplements do come with side effects, and typically kind of constipation, diarrhea, tummy ache. My recommendation would be to actually go for a lower dose. An over-the-counter supplement is as good as a prescribed one, and whatever supplement you can tolerate is better than not taking it at all because it's giving you side effects. Take it every other day. Avoid having it around caffeine, dairy. Try and have it with some vitamin C like orange juice. So I typically take my iron tablets in the evening away from caffeine and like my cereal I have for breakfast, for example. So that'd be my recommendation with regards to iron.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you've suffered a bit, haven't you, from low iron? So I'm always interested in it. I saw a post the other day. It was by a doctor actually that said seen this girl, this patient, and she was struggling to actually absorb the iron. And I think it's for the reasons you just said. She was taking it around caffeine and dairy and things. And she found a hack that worked for her that when she woke up in the middle of the night, she'd take it then, and then she'd just go back to sleep because
Mm.
it was a time that she didn't have like consume anything else. And I was like, oh, that's quite because sometimes trying to find a time in the day when you're busy and you get up early and you grab, your cup of coffee and your cereal or whatever, and then later at night you have dinner. And I feel like people in the evening sometimes you're just tired and you forget. It's trying to find that time to take a supplement at the right
Yeah.
time for it to be absorbed by the body, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard. But so I just, yeah, whatever works for you and putting it out, whether it's by your toothbrush or, you know, yeah, whatever works for you to remember to take it would be my recommendation for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Um, is there any like avenues that we haven't gone down or anything that you wanted to talk about that you're like passionate about or researching or looking into with women's health, or do you feel like we've kind of touched on lots of little bits?
Yeah, I think we've covered most things. We've obviously spoken about reds, we've spoken about contraception a little bit, iron. So those are key factors. The other area that I do think about that we probably don't talk very much about, if we're kind of happy to talk about it, is thinking about kind of vulval health in sport. So as a cyclist, we see a lot of what you call kind of saddle sores, but also kind of irritation down below, which again, people wouldn't necessarily think to go to their doctors to talk about, or they may go to their doctors and not mention that they're cyclists, but actually that's kind of a key part of the history as well. So one thing I see, obviously a lot of people are really getting into the bike with their Hyrox training at the moment, but I'd really recommend investing in some proper bike shorts if you're going to be on the bike for kind of more than half an hour at a time. Otherwise, you're just going to really irritate everything down below.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's such a good point.
chamois cream. Would you
Yes,
like?
yeah,
Yeah,
chamois cream definitely just adds a bit of kind of lubrication to help with friction as well. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like we were laughing about this the other day when we. Do you mind me sharing the story?
No, you go
About
for it.
it. Because like I've done a lot of cycling and Em got into cycling and we've been on the road bike a few times, haven't we? And we've done this massive loop and we were nearly on our way back and I think we were about 60 like miles into the way back and stopped at a cafe and Em was like, I am so uncomfortable. Like I am so uncomfortable. Like everything is hurting. And I was like, you haven't got underwear on, have you? With your bike shorts? Like with your bib shorts and your chamois. And she was like, yeah. She was like, obviously I've got knickers on. And I was like, no, no. I was like,
No,
I should have told you. But like she was like, well, how am I meant to know?
Like every day you get up and you put your pants on, so why would I not do that? I was like, no one's told me not to do that. And she was like, yeah, you don't want to wear them with your bike shorts. That's just gonna like rub in all the wrong places. And I was like, yeah, I've learned that now after like 60 miles.
So anyone that if you do buy some padded bike shorts, don't wear your underwear with them, just like straight onto the bike shorts.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chamois
don't make
cream.
my mistake.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the same if you're, going on the CT bike for long periods of time. People seem to be doing crazy amount of hours on the CT bike now.
Mm.
Do think about bike shorts. Don't just wear your kind of tiny hot pants on there because down below is not going to thank you, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
mean
I
it's so
agree.
true. It's such a good point.
I mean, you look
Um,
funny walking through the gym, don't you? Because you got like this
Yeah,
happy home.
I
But
think if
I'm a
you
bike
know,
short convert, man. I would never if I can get on the bike in bike shorts, I am on the
yeah,
bike in bike shorts.
if you embrace it, you'll start a trend and everyone else will be doing it. So there we
There we
go.
go. Maybe there's a business opportunity to come up with some like cool gym bib shorts
Yeah,
that, match
definitely.
everyone. LSKD if you're listening.
Nice bib shorts that we all wear. Because you can get like so try it's a slightly thinner pad than your like thicker bike shorts. And you can also get shorts rather than bibs. So that might be a bit more appealing to the gym goer potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And
and what? No, no, go
oh, go
on.
on. Is yours still on the health thing? Go on. Or the bike
No,
thing?
no, it's not. I was gonna say like you just mentioned it there, and it is like going back to Hyrox. But what do you think about everyone doing a lot more bike volume, like for Hyrox, like you meant?
Mm.
Because you're a duathlete, a cyclist. Like, do you agree with it, or do you think people are taking it too far and just trying to do anything they think to get better? Or
I do think it has a benefit. I think it has a really good benefit in supplementing run training, so you don't need to push the volume too high, which means your injury risk is lower. I think you need to be really purposeful when you go on a bike, and a lot of people just get on the bike and spin their legs, but actually, in my opinion, there's no point being in zone one. You should know what your kind of zone two watts are above are. And if you're going to go on the bike for an hour, 2 hours, you should kind of sit in that range. It shouldn't be I can just spin, chat to people. Like it should require a little bit of focus because otherwise I don't think you're actually getting much of an aerobic benefit. You might be thinking you are, but I think it's better to, again, if you do a FTP test, you can then work out what your kind of watts range are. You can change the C2 bike computer to watts rather than all the other metrics, and then try and sit in that range. So you kind of do it properly. Don't just spin willy-nilly would be my advice as well.
Yeah, I'm so with you. I mean, it goes back to what you said about purposeful training and, just making the time and not doing junk miles. And I think, yeah, a lot of people do use the C2 bike to just sit and spin, go on their phone, chat to other people in
Yeah.
the gym, and it becomes, yeah, if you want to get whatever you want to get out of it, it needs to be purposeful, doesn't it? I mean, an FTP test is pretty brutal. So you can
It
go
is.
and do one, but like, oh man.
I think if you do the 20-minute version of it, I think if you want to properly use bike training as part of your Hyrox training, it's really, really helpful because you know
Yeah, it
what
is.
the zones are and you can sit and focus on it. You do the same. People probably do a ski test and a row test these days for their splits. So if you want to include bike, you should probably do a bike one as well. It's grim, but then you know where you're at.
Yeah, and if you do high rocks, you're used to suffering anyway, aren't you? So you use
Yeah,
it for the
that's true.
mental strength.
That's
How
true.
I wanted to touch on just fitting everything in because you said you still got like one. Well, you should finish this year as a GP. Um, but like how you're still fitting everything in with like training and like full time work. Like how do you do it? I know you said you felt like you were really tired all the time, but you've got on top of your iron. But I mean,
Yeah, I think my life definitely it got easier to fit things in when I went full time into general practice and wasn't doing hospital jobs anymore. So my working week now is I work 4 long days a week, which means that I have one whole day off a week and then the weekend as well. But I'm an early morning person, so I will get up early, I will train before I go to work, and then that means that no matter what happens in the day, I've got my session in. And then on my non-working days, that's when I tend to do my higher intensity or double day sessions typically. But for me, it's always being an early riser is the way to get things done. I'm not an evening exerciser. With medicine, you never know when you're going to finish work. Like I meant to finish at 6:30 every day, but realistically, I'm out the door at 8 because the last patient of the day is really unwell or there's safeguarding concerns or you've got loads of admin to do. You just don't know what's going to happen. So getting it in early, trying to get a good amount of sleep, and then making the most of non-working days is my recommendation.
Yeah. And then, I mean, that's, yeah, very impressive. I take my hat off to you, fitting it all in. On that kind of note, what do you think about using treadmills and like C2 bikes or watt bikes as opposed to like running outside and like going on the bike outside? Because a lot of people will substitute because of weather and ease and fitting it in or having it in their garage. Do you have opinions on using those pieces of kit
Yeah,
instead, or yeah?
I think I'd say for running, you really need to be doing some running outside. Obviously, it's difficult with the weather if it's dark, depending on where you live. And where I live now, and I'm training early in the morning, it's quite often safest to do a session on the treadmill if I'm, on a work day. And typically that's an interval session or kind of tempo. But for my long run, I would always try and run outside. Also, it's way more interesting than running on a treadmill. And I think as a purist runner, you love being outside. I don't mind going out if it's raining. I enjoy the scenery. I controversially don't listen to music when I'm running outside. I go kind of au natural and just enjoy everything that's going on. But in the summer, if you can do your intervals outside, again, it's simulating race day. Like you're not racing on a treadmill, so why should you be on a treadmill all the time? But I think that it's definitely a useful tool. but you should definitely try running outside. And I know Charlotte will laugh if she listens to this because she's exactly the same. Whenever we go to the gyms train together, we'll always do our run warm up outside. And everyone probably thinks we're a bit weird, but that purist runner in us is like, no, we'd rather run outside, it's fine. And then if we can do our session outside rather than treadmills, we always will do as well. But obviously it depends on, other factors too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's crazy. Like the rise of the treadmills because of Hyrox is crazy. Whereas I feel like shoot back before Hyrox became really popular and everyone hated the treadmill. It was like a last resort to go on or like a warm up if you were in the gym. And now it's like a tool that's utilized all the time, but you've still got the purest runners that yeah,
Yeah. Like
still want to run it outside. Like gonna get that rain jacket on. I'm gonna get
Yeah,
out.
definitely. And it's funny, I really struggle with treadmill running it. I actually can't run my VO2 max pace on a treadmill. I feel like I'm going to fall off. Yet when I run outside, I find it absolutely fine. And I don't know, I've just always found treadmills, I don't know if it's my stride or whatever, but I can only go up to threshold. Otherwise, I generally feel like I'm going to fall off and I can't run on it, which is strange as well. But there you go.
Yeah, no, it is interesting and yeah, different for everyone, but I think it's a very, very good point for sure. Um, right, shall I round up and ask the final question, or has anyone got anything else that we've maybe not touched on? Any sneaky questions, Faye?
No, I think like that's been amazing.
Yeah.
Covered so much.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, we'll round up then, and I will ask you what message or advice would you have for the next generation of girls that are coming up, or your younger self, either one.
Yeah, so I think it's probably a bit of a said a lot nowadays, but with my what I wish I knew when I was younger was about fueling training properly and just making sure that you eat ahead of your training and that you have something, straight away afterwards as well, and actually fuel for performance, not for aesthetics. The aesthetics will come with performance, but it's no good being skinny and not doing what you want to do versus fueling yourself and doing everything you want to do. I think that's a huge lesson I've taken away, especially being in an endurance sport as well. So yeah, so please, girls, fuel your training properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so important. Did you experience that as a, I feel like, you know, the endurance sport, like was the pressure on you to be a certain weight to go faster, especially at the level that you raced at? Did you have that pressure?
I think it was internal pressure. Like I'm not a super small person. Like I'm not a petite framed person. I've always felt like I was bigger, which is crazy because I'm not even hugely big. But on a start line, I would
You're
be
not big. I've met you. You are not big.
would be noticeably bigger than other duathletes or on a on a
Mm.
running start line. I would definitely be bigger by far, and that makes you feel unconfident. Yeah, I'd still always beat those people. So I think it's having that confidence that actually that size doesn't matter, and what matters is how you use your body. And another thing I always say is people talk about race weights, but I think that race weight is whatever weight you are, that means that you perform at your best. And I don't weigh myself. I don't own a pair of scales. I don't go nowhere near them. I think it's important just to go off, how you feel, and yeah, fueling yourself properly. But yeah, I definitely have struggled with that in the past. Whereas
Mm.
Hyrox, I feel, is much more kind of muscle friendly sport, which is what I like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
No,
And
that makes sense because it's not as much about like power to weight ratio. I mean, I know to a certain extent, obviously, like Hyrox is still a sport where you're trying to run fast and produce power, but not as much, I guess, as in the triathlon world. I
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And even still, for women, I think everyone has their weights that they perform at best. And that's going to be different from person to person. So it's just, I feel like a big fan of intuitive eating. So I don't actually track calories or anything at all. It doesn't work for me. It's not a healthy mindset that I have. But I'm very a big fan of intuitive eating. So if it's a day where my body's more hungry, it's probably because I didn't eat enough the day before, and I respond to that to a degree. Maybe not 6 cream eggs down the line, but but I do think our bodies tell you quite well whether you've eaten enough or not. But again, that's also something I've learned over time through, underfueling for years and then realizing, coming out the other side of that and realizing, the mistakes that you've made.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, it's such an important message. We can't yeah, put it out enough. I think it's great and and all girls should feel comfortable in their body and know that they can just fuel for performance, and it's not about what you look like, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much. I feel like we've gone around loads of different avenues. Where can people follow you and find out more about you? Or if anyone maybe had any questions, or me and Faye didn't ask the right question that they were thinking when they were listening, could someone reach out?
Yeah, so you will find me on Instagram, Dr. Megan Powell. I'm trying to build a bit more women's health content. I've just finished my final GP exams, so I'm trying to up my social media game a bit from that side of things. But otherwise, you can follow my Hyrox journey, my training, injury recovery, etc., on there as well. Or if you happen to be, a Bristol resident, then you might see me as your GP one day.
Yeah, you might get lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, thank you so much. It's been absolutely awesome. And your next race is
So Paris,
Paris.
yeah, so towards the end of April, hopefully all going well. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, good luck for that. We'll be watching. And thank you so much for your time today.
perfect. Thank you very much.